big news, Kathleen Kennedy has finally stepped down from the president of Star Wars. She was only in charge for 14 years. As you can really tell, her failures during The Last Jedi really destroyed her career path in Star Wars. I mean, we'll just get into it, but first I want to introduce myself. My name is Carl. I'm the one who's running this channel here. I got my man Chase right next door to me. He's the one in the masculine maid outfit. How you doing, Chase?
Howdy. Feeling great in my... It's very breezy over here with this maid outfit.
I'm sure it does. Quite the updraft. Well, someone has an updraft going on with Kathleen Kennedy. She's just getting blown out of her seat right now. Although she's in a very polite and nice way. She's getting let go of, as everyone was pretty much predicting. The fact that she was not canned after The Last Jedi kind of gave you a sense like, okay, she's not going to get destroyed. She's not going to be mocked. She's not going to be torn down. Even though she deserves it, she's kind of getting the polite, nice way out of Lucasfilm that everyone was kind of expecting, and it's just here. Though we were kind of expecting her to be stepping down after getting some massive awards for Lucasfilm, that never really materialized. I don't know what your thoughts on how did you think that KK was going to be leaving? Did you quite expect it like this, or were you expecting a little bit more, I don't know, maybe a dramatic way for KK to leave Lucasfilm than what we actually got?
So, with corporate America, the thing a lot of people always forget about is that they don't listen to people. Like they make so much money from all these stuff, like these DIE. I prefer to call it DIE instead of DEI because it actually spells die, because that's what this is. It's a dying idea. It always comes down to the fact that these people want to change inherently something that they bought instead of putting it to themselves. So they hired Kathleen Kennedy because she has never, as far as I'm aware, made anything wholesale herself. And when someone does not make something wholesale themselves, they tend to drive that into the ground. And since that's the standard across the entire industry right now, she was basically a big name, you know? And so she would never have been fired, I don't think. I'm actually surprised she's leaving this early. I figured her contract would run out and then she would just be gone after that because they didn't want to have to deal with the online Twitter crowd. But I'm surprised because, apparently people who probably have very little, who are scrolling on TikTok all day, are the really ones who go out and watch the movies.
Right.
But I'm surprised that they actually did. She did step down. I figured she'd have, because I think her contract had like 3 more years in it or something, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it had something like that, but I'm not necessarily too surprised. Kathleen Kennedy, after the failure of the sequel trilogy, because it was a failure, like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. You start off with Force Awakens as $2 billion, The Last Jedi as $1.5 billion, and you end with The Rise of Skywalker as $1 billion film. If you don't notice a downward trajectory by a massive margin, it just failed. And we have to remember, when the cinematic universe is getting started, they're saying how they're going to be just like Marvel, coming out with the Star Wars film every year, if not almost every 6 months. Like, at least I heard a rumor out there. That's how much they want to ramp up the Star Wars production. And we have not received a Star Wars movie in years. Like, that just goes to show you how mishandled this whole thing was. KK herself actually isn't, you can't really blame Bob Iger for that. That's actually something we gotta blame on George Lucas. Now, to be fair to George Lucas, KK did her job pretty well. Like, you could probably say she's like a middle manager person. She gets the coffee, she makes sure the staff's doing their jobs, she moves people around, but she was never a really great creative head. Like, the films that people give her praise for, a lot of those are due to the directors or greater people that she's with than really her own creative abilities. And it really goes to show with Star Wars, when she's with control for the last 14 years, she decimated Star Wars, she decimated Indiana Jones, and she decimated Willow. Now, you're going to have some people who make the argument like, hey, Indiana Jones is a fading franchise. Just look at the Crystal Skull. Yes, that was a film that had its issues, but I don't think that ever destroyed the Indiana Jones fandom. I don't think the fans were like, how dare you make this movie? This is an affront to us. It was just dude, this is a bad movie. This is like a joke, but we'll still watch it. Doesn't hurt the canon. Whereas with Indiana Jones, I just knew the people that were involved with it, so I just backed away. Like, there's no way I'm watching it. From what I heard, the first 10 minutes of that film is an actual great Indiana Jones film. And then after that, you just have Indiana being kind of downtrodden, just kind of wash out, and you have the female lead taking over. Which reminds me of the South Park meme of put a chick in it and make it gay and lame, which fits perfectly with Kathleen Kennedy's MO, at least in my opinion. Now, could she recover? Could she have done something better? Maybe, but she had her tenure, and I think she just got tired of just being stonewalled. Like, she just barely got films off the ground now with The Mandalorian and Grogu and uh, the what was that, the Starfighter that's coming out in a couple years. So she's still gonna be attached to those projects. So she's not going away right now. She's still going to hang around Star Wars for a while, but she just, I guess you could say she just kind of had her hand tied, and she is getting old. Like, you have to keep in mind that she has to go to work every day. She has to be part of it. She probably wanted to at least have some time in her later years just to enjoy life because she ain't getting any younger.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big things is that that people don't talk about is that uh, uh, that a lot of the like stuff that happened with the movies, pretty much. There's only been like what that the last Star Wars movie, like theatrical release, was Solo, correct?
Yeah, so the last Star Wars movie, yeah, I believe that was Solo. That was the last official Star Wars movie that we have received because we haven't really heard anything since. We've had a lot of canceled projects. We had Ryan Johnson's trilogy that Kathleen Kennedy came out and made a comment that he was just too afraid to come back, pretty much. We had a lot of different comments about exactly how films are redone. What the Ray movie that was promised back in 2023 and still is in production hell that we haven't seen. So yeah, Solo is, I believe, the last Star Wars film we've seen come out of Lucasfilm.
Yeah, so that's what, like that. I think that's one of the things that when they tried to make it like Marvel, the issue is that it doesn't, obviously go to the same place. Like Star Wars was always kind of like a modern version of like the Odyssey, the Iliad, the Odyssey, like Homer, like all that stuff. Like it was a more
Mm-hmm.
modern version of that sci-fi.
Mm-hmm.
But trying to make it fit into the wackiness of Marvel. Sure, there's obviously parts of Star Wars that are wacky, even in the like extended universe. But
Very.
there there was always this sense of like grounding. Whereas in comic books, it's about like especially with Marvel, it's about the world outside your window, heroes, and stuff like that are doing different kind of things. Whereas in Star Wars is a more complex story. It can appeal to both people. It can appeal to both adults and children in equal measure. And just look at the original three movies. I watched those when I was a young kid, and I still enjoy them just as much as I do today because of the story impact of them. Whereas in Marvel movies, they're primarily targeting a single demographic, and so the whole idea, the whole way she went about approaching it by saying that they're making it going to be like Marvel is just wrong-headed.
Oh yeah, no, totally agree with you there. And they kind of lost sight of what Star Wars was. Star Wars in itself is a film franchise. You can make TV shows, but where its bread and butter is made is on the films. Yes, we as nerds love the extended canon, love the extended universe before Disney cut it off in 2012 and threw it away. But that's where Disney really should have focused its time and effort on is on the films, not these TV shows where the majority of them have just kind of been garbage. And as you said, Star Wars is kind of more like the Odyssey films, excuse me, the Odyssey story that's being told. And I can't really say any of these shows really live up to that grandeur. The Mandalorian had a lot of promise at the beginning, and I'm gonna be honest, I stopped watching after season 1 because I got tired of the baby Grogu. Like, okay, he's fine for an episode or two, but let him go and, let the Mandalorian go and take out some bounties. Like, you remember that first scene in Mandalorian where the dude gets cut in half by the door? Like, yo, that's wild, man. I couldn't believe it. Like, okay, this is going to be gritty, this is going to be gruesome. And then it just turned into babysitting. Like, it just wasn't quite on that same level of epic story as we were promised at the beginning. And then you have other TV shows like the Ahsoka show, the Acolyte, the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, Boba Fett, uh, and it goes on and on of shows that we've been promised would be great and just fell flat. Now, with the exception, of course, of being Endor, but Endor, that's more of a niche thing. It never really got the massive audience that Mandalorian did. And I think it kind of goes back to your point on Star Wars is a story of odyssey. It's the adventure of a solo person going out and just exploring the wider universe. And I just don't know if that spy thriller really was fitting within the wider Star Wars universe, at least for the mass appeal.
And you see, I don't say want to say disagree, but I think that that can be part of the appeal for Star Wars because if you do it right, like the thing with
Yeah.
the Marvel that Marvel did, since we compare since that was the big thing was you're trying to make it like Marvel, is that they had their main movies, and with Star Wars they had the trilogy. They have their what was it, 7, 8, 9 was the most recent ones,
Yep.
and so they had 7, 8, and 9 for movies, and you can do those TV shows. I think even better. Like I think what the Star Wars could do those TV like those Disney Plus TV shows even better than what Marvel could, because Marvel had like three and then it's kind of dead. I think Star Wars, since it's such an expansive universe, you could do TV shows set in the past that don't necessarily need to relate to the future, because they're so far in the past, like with or like what the Acolyte was trying to do, but actually make it good.
Yeah.
Um, but the problem is that she just doesn't she didn't create it. That's the big thing,
Mm-hmm.
is that most people when they create something are actually going to be the best at writing it because they care about it.
Yeah.
But when you're hired on by a company, you don't have the same incentive, especially with this, because usually she made $1 billion on she probably made Disney about $1 billion on the first one, and just progressively made less and less money, and then till basically it looked like she just left, so that probably to you what you're saying is she's old, so she probably wanted to leave for that, but also I mean it wears on you. I bet it wears on people to constantly open it up and see someone saying you ruined this franchise. You're probably just like, I'll just go away from it. She's rich. She's richer than you and I will ever be.
Oh yeah, no, she wasn't doing this for the money at all. I think it was really getting to the time where Hollywood was getting really political. Star Wars was a prime vehicle. Like I would say, it's on the same level as Lord of the Rings for cultural influence. And if you want to influence culture, just go ahead and shove your agenda into that and make the Force female, as they try to beat us over the head time after time again. And with her stepping down, we have to really take a look, is there anything left in Star Wars worth saving? Now, I'm always going to have a soft spot and love for the original trilogy and the prequels. But I'm going to be honest with you, after the sequel trilogy, Star Wars is kind of dead to me. Like, oh, you made this another film that kind of destroyed the franchise I love. It's a Tuesday. I don't really care anymore. You aren't real Star Wars. You aren't real Disney. And that goes into her legacy of the people that she has replacing her. And we haven't even talked about Dave Filoni and Leon Brennan, who will be taking over the positions here, where Leon Brennan is going to be more the executive pencil pusher financier. Okay, cool. And Dave Filoni is going to be more of the creative mastermind, which just brings up a whole can of worms of incompetency of itself there. That I don't think Dave Filoni, when he first started working for Star Wars under George Lucas back in the Clone Wars, had any ill intent towards Star Wars. I think he truly did love the franchise. I think he was a fan. I think he had his own ideas on what Star Wars was and what it could be. And George Lucas let some of those ideas fly through. Prime example is Anakin Skywalker having an apprentice. I think that was a could have been a great addition, but she stayed too long and she survived. And we can talk on that a little bit later. But that's not the only part that I have an issue with Dave Filoni, of him messing with canon that just has made this story worse. And honestly, I think it's just going to continually degrade over the course of time. And I don't think it's going to be recognizable in the future. But what are your thoughts, Jace?
I would say that you're probably right to a certain extent. I think, however, I will disagree. I think Star Wars does have some ways to go forward. I think a big one is A, you either do a retcon, which is the cheap way out, or B, you just go have it into the future. Like you set up a new thing because there's like I mean I know enough about like I'm still somewhat of a normie with Star Wars, like slightly more than the average, but I also know that there's a place outside of the known universe that they could also get stuff from, and you could have that be the next big thing with Star Wars.
Yeah,
And
yeah. We have something called the unknown regions. Like, if you ever look at the Star Wars map here, you'll notice that really it's just the right side of the map that's fully explored and has hyperspace lanes. The left side of the map, it's kind of no man's land. Like, Episode 9 actually kind of touched on this, where it's just a whole bunch of gravitational fields, it's chaotic space, it's dangerous to travel in, and it almost seems like you cannot escape this Star Wars galaxy because it seems like someone built a wall in. Well, then that goes into the whole Yuzhong Vong invasion in the expanded universe, and we won't get into that here, but you're absolutely right. There are more stories to tell. The issue is, can current Lucasfilm get away from the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy? Because that's where all their TV shows have been based. It's been between those time frames, trying to solidify their uh, timeline with the old canon. And I think it's just, I don't know if they'll be able to break free and do something new and fresh. I agree with you that that's what they should do, but can they do it? That's the question.
yeah, I think that's the question with everything because now you're I think what'll be a big tell if that kind of stuff can go happen is if you said because you said Dave Filoni, he's going to be the new like basically head story writer for Lucasfilms, correct?
Yeah, yeah, he's going to be the new creative director. He's going to be pretty much elevated to a position that I don't think he deserves, but he's going to be taking control, full control now of the storytelling of Disney. That I think there's a lot of people that'd be better fit than it in that position than he is, but that's where he's going to be going at this moment in time.
Yeah, and I'd say probably um, if they can do basically my opinion on Dave Filoni is he is the he is a slightly worse version of the previous person. Like he's going to be better than Kathleen Kennedy, but you know, you better than a turd, you still probably are a turd. It's not
Hmm.
much better.
Yeah, and
And so maybe he'll be completely different. Maybe he was being held back by Kathleen Kennedy. That is a possibility. He was worried about being fired because of the two other movies and there's two other movies and like a TV show I think that their directors got canned and then got completely the either the thing got canceled or they completely redid the movie. I know Solo was one of them and like two others.
yeah, I kind of heard the similar story for Rogue One, that went underneath massive reshoots and change of directors as well. That it just was just kind of a chaotic mess, and really the only reason why people remember Rogue One fondly is the end Vader scene. You don't hear a lot of people really talking about the great chemistry between the actors in the beginning of the film or in the middle of the film. You don't really care much about the fallen Jedi or and his guard. You don't really care about when the whole team just gets wiped out on the island planet by the Death Star. You just like, well, that's sad. The only one who really mourned passing away is probably the droid, just because for his comedic timing. But otherwise, it was just kind of a chaotic mess when it came to a lot of these films and blowing themselves way out of budget. Like I still don't think any of the Star Wars franchise movies have actually really made money with the amount of reshoots and money that they just poured into these projects. They probably broken even some, but we have to remember that Disney spent $4 billion on this franchise before they spent any money developing anything. So one has to wonder, has Disney ever even gotten to the black, or are they deep in the red? And I'm pretty sure they're still deep in the red. And I don't think with Dave Filoni's creativity, I don't think that's going to be how you're going to be able to progress the story. Issues is Ahsoka. Ahsoka, as I mentioned before, she's the main issue. What her role should have been is she's the apprentice to Luke Skywalker. She's there for a little while. The council entrusted her to him because they believed in him. And they're like, yeah, no, you got this. She's a well trained pupil and everything's going to be fine, Anakin. Well, you give a young man who is barely in his early 20s, so barely responsible himself, uh, kind of a crazy Padawan going to dangerous situations. What you should have happened is you have her pass away on a mission, have him go into darker darkness for her passing away, and that's how Palpatine's able to play on him more. She becomes a tool that Palpatine can use on Anakin. Instead, he just makes her immortal, and she just doesn't die. And I'm pretty much at this point, until Dave Filoni leaves, we're never going to see Ahsoka actually die in Star Wars. She'll just be existing till the end of time, existing far beyond when the stars in Star Wars just pass out. That's what I'm thinking. And that's not the only issue. You also have Maul. Maul, he was a cool character, don't get me wrong. I love Maul back in The Phantom Menace. But what are you bringing him back for? What massive element to character dynamics and changes did he really bring? Not a whole lot. The only one who it really affected was maybe Obi-Wan. But at the same time, Obi-Wan already defeated Maul. And yet we see in Star Wars Rebels, he just defeats him again. It just, I don't know. Dave Filoni loves taking things, twisting them, and then trying to be paraded around as a genius, where he's really not. And I just think that's kind of the issues that I don't think Dave Filoni has really come up with a unique new idea that's really pushed Star Wars forward in a positive direction.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is, I think the that's going to be kind of hard, I'd say, for to do it. Like, you got to have some new ideas with it. It's kind
Mm-hmm.
of hard to obviously follow up with the um previous stuff that happened. But I think what they should do is they should really just go away from everything that's currently now. Set it like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, 100 years in the future. Everybody we know, that like the governments, all that stuff gone. The whole thing's changed, and just basically flip the board. Like, you gotta do that,
Mm-hmm.
and then set something up that's not just evil tyrannical empire comes in, rebels kill empire. You gotta keep doing that all the time, especially for longevity, and especially after like, there was the whole extended universe fit in pretty well. Like, there was tons of different things that you could have gone with, but instead they went with this new idea. And so because of that, now they have to work within the bounds of this new idea, which I think would involve taking pieces of the extended universe and then also taking pieces, adding some new stuff and kind of mix and matching the two. Because if you can do that, then you'd be able to go ahead and actually make something interesting. Make your things that are TV shows, make your things that are your movies, make your comic books, novels, all that stuff. Especially in such a massive universe, not everything has to be interconnected either. That's the biggest thing, is that all the I think the biggest thing that a lot of these uh, IPs have done is they've been like, everything's got to be connected. It's like, no, no, not everything needs to be connected. The Star Wars movies can just be about these three things. You can reference them in other projects. You can do all this stuff. It doesn't need to be directly connected. Like, yes, this random dude here is actually going to be a really big part of the movie because reasons. Just wait. It's like, no, just make him have his own story. That's kind of a one-off. He's just a random dude doing something, instead of bringing back Darth Maul or Ahsoka or all this stuff. do an Andor. Do an Andor where it doesn't have to directly tie back into where you see the characters on the screen and everything.
I would like to see one project, if I could name one thing. I would like to see Star Wars to jump, as you said, 500 years into the future. We start with something new, something fresh. What about you? What, as we get here towards the wrap up, what is something new and fresh that you would want to see? Just one item. Is it a new TV show, a new warfare? What are your thoughts on something new and fresh that we could uh, be seeing in Star Wars with these two individuals coming on board and taking control?
I think what you need to do I think what would be a good idea is going back to the roots of Star Wars. Make it about just a random person. Like with the original one, the issue that haunted the most recent ones, and it kind of like hammered it home with the most recent trilogy. Not even haunts the original ones. It's not. It doesn't make them any worse. But I think, and if you want to fully separate them from the previous ones, you have to have a random person be the next character. They can't be related to, the plot twist where it's like, oh, it's Palpatine's granddaughter, or it's
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually the son of Darth Vader. That people expect that now, and so you just do like what they originally advertised with Rey. You make her a nobody. You make her just some random person who's force sensitive. You don't give her some special title or anything like that. Because that's the other thing is the chosen one archetype. It's fine. Star Wars has done a lot of that. I don't think you need to do that anymore. I think you need to, if you're going to go forward, you need to leave that behind for a little bit. You can do
Right.
it later on, but for right now, just leave that stuff behind and have it be about a character who is going on the hero's journey, like going fighting a new enemy. It doesn't always just have to be the Sith right away. Maybe the Sith, they can be there, or they can be a part of that, but there's something else that's the big enemy instead of it always just being, you know, um, like there always will be that stuff with the Sith. That should always be an undertone that's going to be there. But I think having another enemy would be more interesting and bring people into it, like with um, the outside the chart. I can't remember what they're called. What's that place called around the Star Wars map?
Oh, the shoot, I can't remember the the unknown
Yeah,
regions. Yeah.
the unknown regions. Like have something from there. Have something like something new that's not just a rehash because you're gonna want a with new management, and if you're gonna go away from the previous one, you need to bring in something completely new. Like I said, bring in something from the extended universe from before the new stuff that from the unknown regions. Explore some of that, and then have your Sith and Star Wars, have your Sith and Jedi fighting, but also have stuff that's not just the Empire's a fourth Empire, a fifth Empire, sixth Empire, because that kind of gets to the point where it's like, well, we're just beating a dead horse here.
Yeah.
You wrote the Odyssey. You
Oh,
don't. Nobody's asking now for the Odyssey too. They just want something new.
yeah. How many empires do we need to think they're evil until we get the good empire? We're pretty much at that standstill. But I think that you and I are pretty much on the same page. Just move forward, leave behind your sequel trilogy, start with something new, and see if you can come back from it. I'm personally going to bet on a 20% success and 80% failure that they won't be able to do it. Oh, what are you willing to bet? What are the percentages do you think that with these two new people in the helm are their actual chances of success?
So just because I believe that no matter, even if I were to believe that Dave Filoni is actually going to do a good job, and he was my guy, I still don't think they're going to do very well, just because, I mean, they're limited. Like they're the only thing they can only, they might be the heads, but who's actually the heads? The person who, the head of run Disney.
Mm-hmm.
They ultimately will get the axe or no, and if they don't decide that something's not going to happen, then it won't happen. And so I think
Are you gonna say
that's the
Daddy
issue.
Iger is gonna hold them back? That would never happen. Daddy Iger is not a woke man. He is all about the creativity and moving story in the right direction. He's about the creators, man.
Well, to quote George Lucas, he sold his children to the white slavers, and I think that's an apt comparison because he gave up creativity, creative control. He gave up control of his project, his baby, to this other group, and so now anybody who tries to do it, who tries to do Star Wars, they're going to run into the issue where it's corporatized. The only way Star Wars works, the only way something like Star Wars works, is when one person can make it as much as they like it, can make it mostly their own. Like obviously, even George Lucas had input from the studio, like some studio heads, but he still was it was mostly done by him, and so that is what they need to. That's what someone needs, is that they need to have unlimited freedom to do the crazy things, you know. And
And
so with if you're doing it like this, I just don't think, even if Dave Filoni is a great great writer, and he was being held back by Kathleen Kennedy, he's still going to run into the issue of his work is going to be controlled by Disney. So in the end, he's just now slightly more important to be controlled.
yeah. So that's a long ways to say you have about 50-50 shot with this. Okay, I hear you there, man.
Oh no, I'd say less than 50 shot. I'd say 10%.
All right, all right.
I think unless Dave Filoni can take off his hat as seen in that picture there and pull a rabbit out of it and really woo the Disney execs to be like, yes, let's go for it. He's not going to go very far with it. Like his ideas will get shot down either by the Disney execs or his co-chair of Lucasfilms.
Well, let's hope he is able to pull a rabbit out of his hat. Otherwise, this franchise is going to be up on the dung heap of history. And I would really hate to see that. But then again, maybe it's time we get some new stories, some new franchise series. These are old franchises, and maybe it's time for something new. But I want to hear what you guys got to say. What do you think about this discussion so far? Do you think there's hope for Star Wars? Do you think we got opportunity to finally bring it back to glorious days? Or do you kind of agree with me and Chase that it's not likely to see? I want to hear your guys' thoughts down below. Leave a like if you like the video, leave a dislike if you did not. And don't forget to subscribe. I'll catch you all on the next one. Y'all take care now. Bye.